Hello and welcome to another edition of Conservative Corner. Thank you for being with us. Whether it's day or night, we will be rebroadcasting this show continuously on your local cable access TV station from the wonderful studios of New TV. And I mean that sincerely and flatteringly. These studios are wonderful. We were among the first cable access studios in the Boston area, and we persisted for several decades, and we're here with you tonight, or today, or whatever day it is that you're watching this from. We are a monthly TV show dealing with the issues of the day. Sometimes they're national, sometimes they're statewide, sometimes they're local. And as citizen activists, as people concerned with the issues of the day in our own hometown of Newton, which is the largest suburb to Boston with about 90,000 people, if you include the students, probably closer to 100,000. We're dealing with issues that pertain to this particular city of Newton. So today, or rather for the next, for reasons of this clarity on this segment, this will be dealing specifically with the city of Newton and the upcoming election. Now you may ask, well, what election are we talking about? Well, specifically, or generally, we're all finished with the national elections. In fact, we're not even at the statewide elections. What are we dealing with? We're dealing with municipal elections. And those in the city of Newton tend to be and are for city council, school committee, and above all, this particular year, it's for mayor of Newton. And for mayor of Newton, we have to realize that given that we are a city, we have more or less a strong executive wing, which would be the mayor of Newton, and we have a rather large, some would say too large, and I say it, city council, which is 24, and then we have a semi-independent school committee. So the mayor of Newton is and always has been a very important position going back really to the 1800s. And this is a very important position and should be on our minds as residents of the city of Newton. And to quote a famous Democrat who lived close by, Tip O'Neill, all politics is local. And it is local because while the presidential elections may have a voter turnout in Newton of 80%, for some odd reason, mayoral elections tend to be less, sometimes a lot less, and it shouldn't be that way. In fact, it should be reversed. We should have a 90% voter turnout for mayoral elections. Why? Because the mayor's race and who runs our city is closest to home to all of us, literally. And with that being said, I'm very glad to have with us tonight my old dear friend and a very good candidate for mayor, Al Cecchinelli of Nonantum. Al, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me, Tom.
I really
It's a pleasure.
appreciate you being here. And, and admittedly, in full disclosure, Al and I go way back. We've been friends, colleagues, and we more or less overlap a lot in different things pertaining to community service. And however much I may get involved in trying to help the community, or helping out, I should say, in the community, Al does 10 times more than I do, because Al is a community activist, and he's involved in various segments of the community as a volunteer and as a volunteer leader. For example, Al is very active and as the chaplain of the American Legion, the Sons of the American Legion, which is one of the most active American Legions in the state, and it's based in Newton. And for the longest time, Al was very active when we had and helped to run the food bank, which we had continuously at the Legion for a very long time, even to the point where we had it during COVID. And we had to do it outside. But we wouldn't, Al was insistent, as was I, that we would continue with the food bank because people needed it, especially during COVID. So we would be outside in any types of weather with umbrellas, with the bags, whatever, and there was Al all the time. So Al's been, in addition to that, and if I went through a whole litany of the service that Al has paid to this community, we'd be here all day. But as an example, just recently, we had the Newton 9/11 memorial service, of which Al was a contributing member to that, and we were very glad to see him there again. So Al, again, this is from Mayor of Newton, and I'll give you some of my pet peeves and I think that and this is really generic. It's not to do with partisan politics. It's quality of life issues. And I think that most people in the city do not have kids in the Newton schools. Most of the money, however, goes to the Newton schools. So because most of the funding goes to the Newton schools, a lot of the available funding is not able to go to other things which matter to people in the city. And not to take anything from the schools, we have among the finest school systems in the state, if not the country. But we all drive on the roads, and the roads in Newton are deplorable. Now, if you go over the line in Brookline, you go over the line in Boston, it's not the case there. Even in the city of Boston, it's not the case. Yet the roads here, some of the roads with some of these multi-million-dollar homes are deplorable. They're just awful. And, you know, it's to the point where everything is, it's a misallocation of funds. How do you feel about the condition of the roads here that we all drive in?
Well, the roads are atrocious. About, what was it, 8 years ago, we were supposed to have some override money that was supposed to go to the roads, and it never happened. They just spent a ton of money redesigning Washington Street, taking out a lane, putting the bike lanes against the sidewalk, pulling the parking out, putting planters up. That money could have been used to fix the roads that we need fixed. They're trying to fix a problem that we don't have over in Washington Street. They're building apartment buildings like you read about. We've got 2,300 apartment buildings in the works in the city of Newton. That's going to bring more cars, but we're making the roads smaller. This is just going to bottleneck us. And that money could have been spent out fixing roads. We need to have common sense priorities. You had mentioned the schools. You know, the schools aren't bad, but when I graduated from Newton North in 1982, we were the 5th best school system in the country. Now we're not the 5th best in Massachusetts. I think Dr. Anna Nolan is part of the solution. I look forward to working with her and getting us back on track, getting Newton back to this place where our schools are the best, not only in the state but the country. But it's going to take a lot of work. We seem to have far too much administration in the schools. We need to find a way for the money to get into the classrooms, into the students' learning. And as the 9th member of the school committee, I hope that I can help with that too.
What would you, last year, or maybe 2 years ago, I don't recall exactly when, there was a teachers' strike, and they were out on strike for 3 weeks. What would you do if there were another teachers' strike? And bear in mind, the teachers' strike came, I believe, a year, maybe a year and a half, after the conclusion of the COVID shutdown, where the kids were at home for a year and a half. And then they had a teachers' strike. What would you do if you were faced with a teachers' strike?
Well, actually, Tom, we did not have a teachers' strike. We had an illegal work stoppage.
Okay.
And that's a big distinction. We had people that were refusing to work, that were under contract, that were required by law to come to work. I know, as I nannied for my niece during that time, how much that hurt. It's only, what, 2 weeks?
I think it was more like 3.
It hurt.
Yeah.
First off, we never should have gotten to that point. And second, the teachers' union should not have been let off the hook like the city let them off the hook. Mm-hmm. I think that it was disgusting that they punished the children because the adults couldn't get something done. Our police officers just recently, they went 5 years without a contract? Did you see any of them strike?
Certainly not.
Certainly not. The firefighters, when they didn't have a contract, did they strike?
Nope.
Okay. The teachers' strike was uncalled for. I'm sorry, the work stoppage was uncalled for. And we can't have another one.
You know, what's interesting too, after COVID, or rather during and after COVID, the percentage of people who took their kids out of the public schools in Newton and sent them to private schools. And I believe that the figure was around 1,000 students left the system during COVID or didn't return to the system. And that says a lot. That says a lot. And they went to other schools. Now, granted, those are less students in the system, but for the life of me, neither I nor I think many people in the city couldn't figure out what in the world were they striking for. You have less students in the system. You want more money. I mean, what more do you want?
Well, it seemed like they weren't they didn't stop work for themselves. They stopped work for other aides and things like that to get better benefits. And so that they could do more work in the classrooms. But that was not the way to do it. That's not the way that union negotiations are supposed to happen.
Certainly not. And you know, during the second term of this current mayor, 3 overrides were proposed, and they were partial overrides, specific overrides, 2 of them, to rebuild 2 schools in Newton, the Franklin School and the Countryside School right near the studio. And then there was a 3rd general override. But the voters approved only the overrides, the partial overrides for both schools, but they did not approve a general override. and I think that was a correct choice, how they voted. What do you think will happen moving forward? And if there is another override, how do you foresee this? Would you be in support of that, or would you be against it?
I'm against an override 100%. We as a city are paid to manage how the city runs. Mm-hmm. We have an idea of what it costs to run the city. We have an idea of what our tax base is. We need to make that work together. If I decide tomorrow that I want a Ferrari, I can't just go out and get a Ferrari because I can't make the money work. I can't go to Tom and say, well, Tom, you got to give me an extra, $3,000 a year so I can have a Ferrari. And that's what we do when we go and have an override. We're not fulfilling our duties as stewards of this city to run it in a fiscally responsible manner.
You know, Al, there's this image from outside Newton that Newton is a very wealthy suburb, and I think per capita maybe it is. However, you and I both know people who are far from wealthy, and we know a lot of retirees. Now, I'm not going to mention or even allude to specific people whom we know, but there are real people who are retired, who are literally living on Social Security pensions, who live in these very nice homes that they've lived in for maybe 40 years, that were valued at maybe $250,000 or even less than that, maybe $150,000 40 years ago. Now they're well over $1 million, and they're being assessed for that. Now, it's very good, perhaps, if they want to sell their homes, but they don't want to sell their homes. They want to stay within Newton. The problem is the tax rate has gone up tremendously. So much of their limited income as elderly people in their 80s, are going just to pay the city taxes and the property taxes. And for the life of me, I can't figure out, with the huge tax base that we have in Newton, with all these McMansions going up, with all the extra income coming in from the property taxes, why the city can't make some amends to these elderly people who are genuinely on fixed incomes, retiree incomes, and literally can't afford this, can't afford the taxes that keep going up despite Proposition 2.5, which limits the tax rates to 2.5 points. But they still go up 2.5 points, it seems, per year.
Well, I think we have to look at it in a different way. I think we have to look at it that we don't have a problem that we don't take in enough tax money. I think we have to look at it that we spend too much tax money. So if we could control our spending using common sense, we wouldn't need to tax the elderly out of their homes.
How do you feel? My feeling is I travel around and ride around Newton all the time, as do you and everyone else. And what I've found is that little things add up to really drive you crazy. For example, traffic lights that are unnecessary that are put in. I'll give you a quick example. At the corner of Parker Street and Route 9, for years we didn't have traffic lights on Parker Street, which goes from Dedham Street all the way to Newton Center. And the traffic flowed continuously. You just had a stop sign. Now there's 2 middle schools and a high school on Parker Street in my neighborhood, Oak Hill. Then they put up a traffic light, and the traffic light stops traffic all the time. So now you have the traffic backed up from Route 9 all the way to Dedham Street, about 1.5 miles, and then in the other direction it can be likewise all the way to Newton Center. And we're not talking like 6:37 in the morning, although it is, but when schools get out, and they all get out at the same time. So for the life of me, I don't understand why there's no common sense approach to these things. And I'm seeing this also on Needham Street, where you have a similar thing where they put up traffic lights. Traffic lights cause traffic. They do. And then they'll say, oh, it's a safety concern. No, it's not. I mean, for some reason, we got along without them on these various intersections for the longest time. And then they put up one in Newton Corner as well. And the traffic is backed up as you go around the bend from the Sheraton there all the way into Center Street. And, there's no common sense to these things because the bureaucrats who put up these lights don't have to deal with them all the time.
Well, it all comes down to the traffic calming that they're trying to do. It's called the road diet. They think that by making it inconvenient to drive, you're not going to drive. So if it takes you 20 minutes to drive 5 minutes, they think that you're going to get on public transportation that's really not existent, ride your bike, which isn't feasible in the winter, or walk. And with our aging population, that's not always a solution. So this road diet that they have us on, where they make the lanes smaller, and they put the bump outs out, and they put up traffic signs, and they put up 4-way stops everywhere. That's just to stop us and make us frustrated so we leave our cars at home.
That not only is inconvenient, it's obnoxious that they do that the politicians do that. It's downright obnoxious. Now, I don't take the subway that much, but I've only taken it a few times in the past few years to go to the Red Sox game. I think I've taken it twice. Both times the Green Line broke down. So why, and this is just me taking it. So can you imagine people taking that every day? Why in the world would people get on this congested, small subways going to and from Boston? And it's so impractical that people would use that. And then the train itself, the Purple Line, which, runs along the Mass Pike, that's not convenient either because they're not continuously that go in all the time in and out of Boston.
Well, another part of the problem, though, is if you're going into Boston, that's a solution. But if I'm going from Nonantum to Auburndale, I can't get on the Green Line to do that.
Of course, because
if I'm going up to Newton Highlands from Nonantum, I can't get on the Green Line.
The roads go to and from Boston. They go east to west. They don't go across the city, which I believe we're 18, 19 square miles. We're a big city. We're the biggest suburb.
Yeah.
And the buses don't go all the time, and people just are not accustomed to doing that. And it's obnoxious. Now, the other thing I think people are noticing are the bike paths that are being imposed on the city of Newton, just like they are in Boston. An example, Hammond Pond Parkway was once this great free-flowing road with 2 lanes in either direction. You could get in and out of it perfectly. So what did the, quote, city officials do? they not only did they put bike paths in, but then they made like a green area of maybe 20 yards wide. So they eliminated, I believe, 2 lanes. So now you have just 2 lanes going back and forth. For what? For what? This was a major thoroughfare. Now it's not.
You're right. And again, we have more housing units being built, which means there's going to be more cars, which means we should be increasing our roadways, not decreasing them. Our infrastructure is going to be too small for our city soon. We need to have common sense. Another example of that is taking away parking spaces in Newton Center to put up an asphalt park. I mean, they put picnic tables on the asphalt and painted polka dots on the ground. 56 parking spaces were taken away, which are vital to the commercial industry that is in Newton Center.
Yes, indeed.
All of those small shops, they rely on people getting there to buy their products to stay open. Now they said, well, we've added 56 other spots in other space in other areas. These were prime spots.
And Al, you're right about that. But literally from November till April, that picnic area that you mentioned, nobody's going to be using that because it's too cold.
It is.
Of course, and just like no one's going to be using the bike paths, if they use them at all now, because it's going to be too cold. I mean, we are not Amsterdam. We're not a bike city, nor we're not a bicycle culture. We drive bikes recreationally, not to get from point A to point B. But there's this whole anti-car Green New Deal mindset in the city. And it's, again, the word I will use is it's obnoxious. And we have to stop this before it continues. And it's going to continue. I don't know what your opponent's viewpoints on that are, but frankly, if knowing him, I would assume that he would perpetuate that. And you certainly wouldn't.
Well, actually, I think that when we look at a road, we need to look at how a bike and a car can share the road. I'm not talking about putting up pylons so that only bikes can be in a spot, because on Washington Street, that's dangerous. If you've got cars coming both ways and you have an emergency vehicle to get over and there's people parked and there's the bike lanes and you can't get over, how do those emergency vehicles get through?
That's right.
There has to be an accommodation for bikes, but it can't be at the exclusion of the safety or the convenience of everyone else. When I was on the Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Commission, I helped with the open space plan. And one of the things that we had hoped to do was bike trails that would connect all of the parks in the city. There's a beautiful bike trail from Waltham right into Watertown Square. Have you been on it yet? It's a beautiful.
I'm familiar with it, yes.
Behind New TV, there's a beautiful, by the rail, they're working on something there. Those are beautiful, beautiful bike lanes, bike areas, but the rules of the road say that bicycles share the road with the vehicles. So we need to find out a way, common sense, without making it so that it's dangerous for either of the people. It's not dangerous for people getting out of their parked cars into a bike lane. We need to refigure this out. What they're doing in Cambridge with the pylons, not good.
I've noticed also, and I've heard this from small business people, especially restaurants, fast food places. Have you noticed in Newton, there tend not to be any drive-throughs? Now, on Needham Street, there's a big McDonald's there. They have the whole infrastructure. It's a big parking lot. They have the windows that are boarded up so that they could have drive-throughs. But the city won't let them do it for no particular reason than all these silly regulations. And for the life of me, I don't understand why the city is so intrusive on something as simple as a drive-through at McDonald's or Dunkin' Donuts for that matter. I don't understand why they can't just let them have them.
I don't either.
It's strange, isn't it?
It is.
And I've asked the mayor about this, and there's no answer to this. And, you know, it's raining out, it's snowing, it's whatever. It's late at night, you've worked all day, there's a McDonald's there. All right, it's, you know, it's junk food, but you know what you're getting. But you don't want to get out of your car, go through the snow, go into McDonald's and get the food. You want to go through the drive-through. And the infrastructure is there, but they won't let him do it. And Dunkin' Donuts as well. You don't want to get out of your car. Yeah. Make it convenient for people. Make it good for people. Make people's lives easier. And that's what I'm seeing, that the politicians don't do it in the city. They don't make life easier and more pleasant for the residents of Newton, is what I'm saying.
Okay, well, that's
what you're here to do.
I want to work for the citizens of Newton. I don't want to work for the teachers union. I don't want to work for the police union. I don't want to work for the firefighters union. I want to work for the citizens of Newton. Right now, I'm on a job interview, and I would love to talk to anybody about any of my policies that has a question. And I know that we're not going to agree 100% on anything, but I'm sure that you're not going to agree 100% on everything that my opponent has either. We need to find a common ground where we can get to some common sense governance.
And you know, Al, one thing I like about you in particular, you have never worked for government. You've never been on a government payroll. You're not in the city council. You haven't been in this school committee. You're a civilian activist, a city activist, and you come from the private sector. You're a lawyer. You're a chef. What an amazing background. You're a caregiver to your elderly parents and also to your young nephews and nieces. And you can certainly relate to both ends, both the elderly population and the young population who are going through the schools, because you've been at both angles, both ends of the spectrum. And I think that you're running you're a very qualified person to take this position, and you've been here forever in the city of Newton. You haven't come from elsewhere. You're a Newton homegrown. And tell us in the minute that we have, again, this is the fastest 30 minutes in new TV. Tell us what you want to say in the last minute that we have.
Well, first, I'd like to thank you for having me, Tom. And I'd like to ask you to consider voting for me on November 4th. You can find out anything you want from me by asking. I'm around. I'm in the city all the time. Just walk up to me and introduce yourself. I'd love to meet you. I'm Al Cecchinelli, and I'm running for mayor.
Thank you, Al.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Best of luck to you. God bless you.